my name is Jamie Hunter. I am going to unbox the Zumo32U4 robot kit and I'm going to show how to put it together. First of all, we have this extra padding layer. I'm not sure what this was for. It has a display and we will be soldering this later on to put a little header on that. We've got a few components in this bag. So first of all, we've actually got the main board. We've got some LEDs, and then we've got the sensor bar. You'll notice that we've actually already got a header on here. And we'll take out the sensor bar for now. And I'll put these off to the side. This is one of the first things we'll be soldering, so I'll keep this very close to hand. In this bag, we've got our magnets or quadrilateral encoders. And we've got some headers. Actually, these we'll be using very quickly. And we have our front grill plate. And we've got various headers, and some of which we'll need to get started with. Okay, in this next bag, we've got some tube. That's for the LEDs, for the central LEDs. We've got some screws of various sizes. These are used for wheels, and then we've got battery clips. And in this final bag, we have got the treads, we've got the wheels, and we've got the battery box. Now, one of the first things that we need to do is solder on the buzzer. So let's get the buzzer. Now you notice that we've actually got an outline of a buzzer shape, and the buzzer needs to follow a shape. And challenges we have, of course, is as we plop the buzzer in there, and as we tip it around to solder, the thing's going to drop out. So there's a couple of approaches for this. One approach is that we can get in and we can use some pliers to bend the leads. Now we can potentially get some success with this in the case of the buzzer. So obviously now the buzzer is held in place by actually solder. We're also going to use another trick. So let that drop out. I'm actually going to get some pieces of black tape, and so we'll put the buzzer in, and we'll take a piece of black tape, just put it over the buzzer, like that. So now holding it into place. And hey presto, we can now work on this without having to worry about how do we keep this in place while soldering. So let's fasten this in place. Make sure the soldering iron is clean. So as we solder this in place, we need to provide the solder and the heat. So first of all, provide the solder. My tip is clean. Provide the heat. And once we're happy, we can cut off the excess. Now watch your eyes when you do this. Good idea to wear glasses. And we can see we've now got our first part soldered on. So we're going to do the same again. Our next thing that we need to do is we've got two places that we're going to have these little connectors. And this time I'm going to put tape on both of them. Once we're happy, turn it over, solder a first point. Check it, make sure we're happy. And solder the next point. Like that. This is our high performance motor, and we have our extended shaft at the end. In the kit, you're actually going to get 3 wires. What we're actually going to do is we're going to cut these wires in half each. So take these 3 wires, let's cut them approximately in half. Now the motor, we have a positive end and a negative end. We do a little 90-degree bend, then this is going to go into the motor like this. Now, personally, actually I would recommend doing something a little bit further. So we have this going through the hole, then further take your needle nose pliers and bend this round and onto itself so it gets held into place. Do a slightly more of a 90-degree bend. Go through the hole from the outside in. Then use your pliers to close it in on itself. Right. Now when you're soldering this part, Flowloo recommends that you are very quick. They don't want to have a heat on for more than a few seconds. Now another thing to keep in mind is that these motors, you're going to have them in opposite, the wires are opposite to each other. So in this case I've got my plus on my left and my plus wire coming out towards me on the left, and I've got a negative wire coming out towards me on the right. And it's okay if you hold it right at the edge while it's actually setting to make sure it's coming out. If you're a little bit worried, again you can always use black tape to actually hold things in place. And we'll get the iron and solder together, and as quickly as you can, and done. So the first one's easy enough. The second one, we need to make sure that you have it opposite to the first one. So here I've got a positive and a negative. So the second one, I'm going to make sure the positive is on the opposite side. See, I'm double checking this. I want to be really, really sure. I've got positive on the opposite side. Get my motor in place. Get the next half wire, and bend it round a little bit more than 90 degrees. Bend the left. Now if it helps, you can move it off to the side temporarily. Just make sure that when you're done, you're facing the right way. I'm going to use my tape just to hold these pretty much in place. It doesn't have to be precise because we can actually fix this later on if it's not. Just mostly there. And stop it twisting around a bit. Okay, and in this case I'll solder the right hand side first. And then I'll solder the left hand side. Alright, so as we see here, I've got positive this side and negative this side with the wires opposite to each other. And that's the key thing here, is that we need to know which side the positive is and that the wires are opposite each other. Now I've actually put wires on, we can actually put these magnetic discs on. On the bottom here I've just pushed it on, I can push that down until it stops, and I know I've got them at the right place. So let me just do that on this one as well. I've got my magnetic encoder. I'll put it on my surface. I'll push that down, and that is done. Now we're going to put these motors into a chassis. Key thing here is that on this outside we need to make sure that's the positive side of the motors. And so I'm going to double check on here, which is my positive side. And on this one, on this motor, my positive is on the left. On here I want my positive on the left, and so this is going to go here. So I've got positive, negative. And then the other motor is just going to go the opposite direction. So again, we've got positive, positive, negative, negative. So now we're going to actually put the board over this. Now, a bit of a challenge here, trying to get the board over the motors. But now we've got the motors the right direction, I'll hold the board off to the side, I'll take the motors, and I'll put the wires through, like this, and I'll just bend the wires a little bit so it's going to hold the motor in place. Do some on the other side. I'm going to take the motor, put it through, just bend the wires a little bit, and see that's nicely held in place. And so again, we're back to the same situation we had before. Now notice we've not done any soldering yet. We're actually going to have two sizes of screws as we screw this in. And we have a 3/16 screw and a 1/4 inch screw. We need two of each. Now with a 1/4 inch screw, you're going to put these near where the motors are. So make sure the motors are in place. The great thing is you'll very easily know that you've got this right. If the motors are actually correctly in place or not. If not, it's just not going to go together very well. So I've got the motor flush. Let's look at this side here. We have a motor flush, and then we've got a screw through hole, and then we have a little place just here that the nut needs to go. The best bet is just to push the nut there, push the nut in. If you want, you can use a black tape trick again. Just put the black tape over there. Next nut in. Now just slot into place. And put a black tape over that. Now black tape is going to hold that nut. I can turn it over. And I can put the bolt in here. Get a screwdriver. Put it in. Not too tight, just tight enough. Do the same on this side. You can always tighten it up afterwards. Okay, great. So that's now in place. Now we'll take the cover off, and this nut, and now I need to put a bolt here and a bolt here. And so I can turn over. Obviously we've got little holes where those nuts can go. So drop it in, put my black tape there, just hold it in place. The side, drops it in, put black tape, just holding it in place. So now I can put my 2 bolts. Yeah, so there's the first one. And my second one. I do put my finger on the black tape at the back just in case it pushes through. Now it's done. So now we're actually at a point that I can solder these. And we can cut off the excess wire. We've got the motors in, they're all wired up. We've got the screws in, and it's got screws in the bottom. Next thing we're going to put in a female header over here. Do this right, I feel my header is going to point and sit against the battery section with our pins on the side, same side as what we have our speaker. So again, we're going to use our black tape trick. I'm going to hold a female header in place. It's going to give me a chance to solder. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to solder the 2 opposite ends, here and here, and that will hold the header in place. And it'll also make sure the header's in place and I can check everything before I solder the rest. It's much easier for me to reverse my decision if I decide I've got a mistake to do at this point in time, because as soon as I solder everything else in, to fix new repairs is a lot more work. Okay. So as you see, I have now soldered the header on. I'll take the black tape off. And you notice in this case, I haven't quite got the black header where I want it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, I'm going to press my finger against this black header. When I'm pressing that against that black header, I'm going to put my soldering iron against the pin. And it just pops through, and it's good. And same on the other side. And that means I'm good now to solder the rest of these pins. Now the next thing we have to do is actually put the battery connectors on. So these are battery connectors. Now these rounded edge ones are going to go on this bottom here. You have like a hook, it's going to go over this hook back here. We've got the same over on this one. We've got this one which doesn't have the rounded edges. We'll go in the middle on the far side. Finally we have a spring terminal and a flat terminal. Now spring terminal, as you can see we've got spring here, so we know a spring terminal is going to go back over here. But we have a problem that as we put that in, it's just going to drop and drop out. The little trick that Pololi recommends is that you actually put battery in place, and that will actually hold our actual spring terminal. We can push that so it is nicely aligned, but the battery is now holding that in place. I'll do the same with the other side. I'll put the terminal in, I'll put the battery in, and that will just act as a holder. And then I'll push on the bottom here until I'm happy with the position. So I'm happy this is all lined up here. I've got the tab coming out here and here. And once we're happy with the tabs, we can actually solder these in place. Now these will require a lot of heat and a lot of solder. I might turn up my soldering iron a little bit while I do this. You can now also take your batteries out again, and we can check on the work. So now these nicely in place. It's nicely in place, that's soldered in place, and that's soldered in place. So at this point now we've nicely got our base done, and so we're actually going to start putting our sprockets and our tracks on. Now we've got two types of wheels. We've got this type, which these posts will actually go through, and we have this type, which will fit around. This will fit around the motor. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take that flat edge and we're going to put that on the table, and then we're going to position the motor together with that, and then we're going to push down. So I'm going to put flat edge on the table. Alright, so now we've got our two motor wheels done. Now we need to do our idlers. Now notice we've actually got a place here that the nut goes down, and so we drop the nut into the hole, and this will go through the flat end of the wheel. We'll put a washer on the other side, and then put that in. And at this point, I just hand screw this in with the washer on, and we'll hand tighten. Then I can put my treads on both of these. And once I'm happy and everything looks level while it's sat on the table, I will take an Allen wrench and just tighten that idler wheel there just a little bit more. So the next thing we're going to do is put the blade on. Blade, we need to bend the tab until we're about what we think is about 75 degrees from original straight position. You can approximate it, we can adjust it later on. So just bend these tabs over, and then on the front here we've got our two screws. We're actually going to take those out again, and then we're going to screw this in place. Now we've got to be careful of these nuts here, because these nuts will drop out. So what I'm going to do is take the first one out, keeping my finger over the nut. Drop it through the blade, again keeping my finger on the nut. And just a couple of turns to make sure that I don't lose that. Now push this one a little bit out of the way. Again, keeping my finger on the nut, take that screw out. And now I'm going to screw this back in again. on this side. I'm going to check my blade. My blade is probably a little bit too tight. In fact, it's pressing against the silicone tracks. So I'm going to bend this down, holding the back a little bit. And so it's now near the floor, and I can bend it back forward a bit until I'm happy with the clearance. Now we're onto this LCD. As LCD, we want this to be able to fit on the top here, and we can use that for debugging. So what we're going to do is take this little header, and we notice we've got a short side and a long side. Drop it in place on the side where the LCD screen isn't, and I'm going to put black tape over it to hold it in place. So it's now been held into place, ready for me to solder. So I'm securing it in my helping hands. So let's just put a couple of solder joints to hold it in place on here. Actually, let's just do the one, because one's just is going to be enough. I'm going to check, make sure I'm happy with it. I'm going to do the next corner, opposite corner. Again, just a quick check, make sure I'm happy with everything. And now I'll get the rest done. I can now see that's that on top of the actual robot, like this. Our next thing is our sensor array. This one we have to make sure we get this right, because you want these to be on the bottom, like this, and we want long, short, short. We want the short to go through those holes at the top. So this is nicely going to hold the sensor array on the robot, and so we're going to solder on the bottom here where our sensors are. So I'm going to use some black tape to hold this in place. Like that. Using my helping hands, I'm going to solder that in place. So we've got a lot of solder joints here. But again, let's do a couple. Hold in place. Make sure we're happy with it. Everything's holding in place okay. And now I can finish this off. I'll show a zoomed in soldering error here. So I've got a short between these 2 points. Use my soldering braid. I'm going to put that over the joint. And put my soldering iron against it. And it will nicely soak up the excess solder. Next thing is we've got these headers, which have got 3 pins each. Now we have to be careful with these headers, is that they are going to face inwards on the same side as this header. So it's going to go here, here, here. So I'm going to put some black tape over these. Hold the other side. Now what we're going to do is actually put jumpers on this. You notice that we have left and right, and we've got DN2, DN4. What we're going to do is put the jumper over so it's going over the left and right. That's this blue box So it's over this side. So now what we're going to do is put the centre bar on the bottom, lining up all the pins, and if you did everything right, you've got a nice gap on both sides. Next thing we're going to do is put this LED holder, which is 3D printed, attach it to a bumper like this. Then we're going to use the spare 1/4" screws to fasten it in place. Right, and now we've actually got the bottom part of the box connected for the LEDs, and we just need to put the batteries in and actually run the bot. Turn it on, and we've got a flashing yellow to say that our initial bootloader code is running.